Thank you for joining me for the 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act by Bob Joseph. I hope you pick up the book. We're at number 14. My name is the Reverend John Borthwick, and I serve the community of St. Andrews in Guelph. And I'm inviting folks to hang out with me and walk through this important, yet albeit brief book and look at the Indian Act. So this week it's number 14. It's this. Forbade Western Indians from appearing in any public dance, show, exhibition, stampede, or pageant wearing traditional regalia. So the Indian Act put in place, one could argue, and I'm not sensing that that's where Bob Joseph is going with this. One could argue that that people who were living in the Western provinces were encouraging the Indigenous community to be a part of their events and to turn up in a way that is meant to entertain, meant to put on a show, essentially, for the colonizers, the settlers. So one could argue that within here there's a sense of, when the settlers are having agricultural exhibitions, they're bringing in the Indigenous community as sort of a little dog and pony show, a little novelty act, a little something something. And so maybe this prohibition was about trying to not force them or make them feel like they had to participate in these kinds of things. That's being exceedingly generous to the government. It was more likely an act by the federal government to prevent, as we talked about before, the Indigenous community from wearing with pride their traditional clothing, the things that are important to them. There's the costuming, the articles of clothing, the way in which they dressed as a people spoke volumes of meaning. There's story within their apparel, and it's a way of expressing their culture, their history. It's a way of identifying them within their community as to being, whether that means an elder or some history that they've been a part of. It's very important for them to be able to wear what they want, number one, but to wear certain kinds of items of clothing and a way of dressing that sort of marks and tells a story and identifies them as individuals, but also as a part of a wider community. It's a short little chapter in the book. It doesn't say too much, but essentially it was an offense. If they were at an event, they could be arrested, they could be fined. There was a lot of stuff, again, that involved the Indian agent that would have to give permission, that if they did it without the permission of the Indian agent, which again controls people's movements, controls how they dress, controls how they participate and show up in life. Again, all these things are done intentionally and with the purpose of with the purpose of eliminating or reducing the cultural expression of a people. Just one teaser to encourage you to check out, if you have the ability or the resources. There's a show on CBC, at least on CBC Gem. I don't know if it's on CBC or how you'd find it specifically on CBC, the television, called What the British Stole, I think is what it's called. And it's basically tells the story. It's an Australian reporter from the ABC, actually, Australian Broadcasting Corporation. And it's also a podcast. It's an amazing podcast. I listened to a lot of the podcast way back when. But now it looks like they produced it as a TV show, and there's, I think, 3 or 4 episodes right now. I'd encourage you to check it out if you'd want, especially this one that speaks about an Indigenous community in Canada, in the West, that are seeking to get back regalia of one of their great leaders, one of their important people. And the conversation about all this stuff around why is it sitting in a British museum, and why, how come we can't get it back, and how did it get there, and what it meant and what it means to the people. Amazing story. I'd really, really encourage you to check it out, especially related to this number 14 of 21 things you may not know about the Indian Act. Thank you.